Okay, today we're going to talk about something that is truly a science-backed tool that can completely change the relationship you have with yourself, especially when things get tough. We're going to explore a really practical way to finally quiet down that harsh inner critic for good.
So let me start by asking you something. Just take a second and think about the last time you made a mistake. Or maybe you fell short of a goal, or just had one of those days where you felt like you weren't enough. What was the first thing you said to yourself? What did that little voice in your head sound like?
Yeah, if you're like most people, that voice probably wasn't your biggest fan, right? It might have sounded a little something like this. It's so often harsh and judgmental and just really quick to point out the worst. This voice, it actually has a name. Psychologists call it our inner critic. And this habit of harsh self-judgment, it's not just some personal quirk. It's a really widespread problem, and research shows it has a major impact on our mental health. We're talking everything from anxiety and depression to just relentless perfectionism. But what if there was a better way? A much more effective alternative to just beating yourself up? Well, there is, and it's called self-compassion. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. That sounds a little soft, doesn't it? Maybe even counterintuitive. So before we get into what it is, let's talk about what it isn't. Let's just dive right in and tackle the biggest misconceptions about this. Because to really get what self-compassion is all about, we have to clear away all the myths that stop people from even giving it a shot. Okay, so the first big myth is that self-compassion is just a form of weakness, right? Or self-pity. But the research shows the complete opposite. It's actually a huge source of emotional resilience. And it's definitely not about making excuses. In fact, people who practice self-compassion are more likely to take responsibility for their mistakes because they're coming from a place of support, not shame. And this brings us to the biggest myth of all, the one so many of us were taught to believe, that you have to be hard on yourself to succeed. We think that if we let up, we'll just get lazy and complacent. But again, the science tells us that's completely backwards. Self-compassion doesn't kill your motivation, it fuels it. Real, lasting change comes from support, not from shaming yourself.
So, now that we've cleared the air, what exactly is self-compassion? Well, the pioneering researcher Dr. Kristin Neff, she defines it not as just a feeling, but as a practice. And it's built on three core, totally actionable components.
And you know what? The framework itself is actually pretty simple. It all comes down to these three pillars: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. Let's break down what each of these really means. First up is self-kindness. And honestly, this is the heart of the whole practice. It's about making an active choice to be gentle and understanding with yourself instead of critical and judgmental. It's literally about replacing that harsh inner critic with a supportive inner ally.
The second part is what we call common humanity. You know that feeling when we fail and we feel totally alone, like we're the only one who messes up this badly? Well, common humanity is the perfect antidote to that isolation. It's the simple recognition that being imperfect and failing and struggling, it's universal. It's what connects us as humans. It doesn't separate us. And the final piece of the puzzle is mindfulness. Now, this is the grounding element. It's all about acknowledging our pain without getting totally swept away by it. We're not trying to ignore our negative feelings, but we're also not letting them completely take over. We just observe them with a bit of clarity and balance. Okay, so we know what it is, but why should we practice it? What's the payoff? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because this isn't just a nice idea. It has real, tangible, measurable effects on our minds and our bodies. On the psychological side of things, the benefits are just huge. I mean, study after study has shown that self-compassion is a powerful buffer against anxiety and depression. It helps dial down that harmful perfectionism, and, like we said before, it actually increases your resilience and boosts your motivation to keep going after a setback. And get this, it's not just in your head. Practicing self-compassion is kind of like hacking your body's own stress response. It actually helps lower cortisol, that's the main stress hormone, and it activates the part of your nervous system that is basically your body's built-in calm-down button. So what's the big takeaway from all this? The core message is actually pretty simple. You have a choice. You can keep listening to that harsh inner critic, or you can make a conscious choice to reframe that inner dialogue. If you only take one thing away today, let it be this. This is the central idea that makes the whole concept just click. It's not about letting yourself off the hook. It's about giving yourself the same support you would automatically give to someone you really care about.
And that really just leaves us with one final question to think about. The next time that inner critic starts talking, just ask yourself this. It's such a simple question, but answering it honestly, well, that might just be the first step toward a kinder and much more resilient you.